One of the new age programs that ICFAI has launched is the online MBA program under the banner of ICFAI Online. In connection with this, we have put together a few expert speakers who will be sharing some of the most relevant topics and the thoughts around those topics, which will add a lot of value in helping the prospects, the students, and the working professionals choose better. Today, we have one such webinar about to take off. The relevance of an online MBA in the digital world. This is the first topic of the webinars which are starting from today. We have Professor Sanjay Fuloria, who is a professor at ICFAI Business School, Hyderabad, and we have Professor R. Prasad from the academic wing of ICFAI Group. Both of them will be speaking in this webinar, and we'll be starting with Professor Sanjay Fuloria. The agenda for the day is 30 minutes of the initial talk by Professor Sanjay Fuloria, and then Professor Prasad will chip in with his interaction both with the audience as well as with the guest speaker. And then we will have some important questions picked up by the moderator, that is Professor Prasad, and those questions will be answered by both of the experts who will be on the screen at 7:15 p.m. onwards. And I take pleasure in introducing Professor Sanjay Fuloria. He's a very, very popular professor at ICFAI Business School, Hyderabad, with a total experience of 22 years, out of which in industry he spent about 12 years and 9 in academics. He combines the richness of experience in academics with the exposure in corporate world, and he most of the times works at the intersection of policy, technology, and development. And you will see today during his talk what makes him extremely popular among the students. I now request Professor Sanjay Fuloria to take over and deliver his talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sudhakar Rao, for a great introduction. And good evening, everyone. I hope my screen is visible to all. Thank you everyone for attending this. So the topic of today's discussion is relevance of the online MBA for the digital world. So I'll be speaking about this, and I would like to keep it interactive so that in the end you can ask questions, and Professor Prasad and I would like to answer as many as we can. So before we understand what a digital MBA would look like, it's better to go to the history of the MBA program. Where did it all start? Why was it relevant? And who started it, right? So it was in 1888 that the Wharton Business School, which we have heard of, they started this program, okay? Then 1900, Tuck School of Business in the US, they started this program, but it was not called MBA. It was called Master of Science in Commerce. See the amazing shift that we have. It was called Master of Science in Commerce. So that's a very different kind of a name. But yes, people were interested and people came and joined. So it was basically targeted at people who were working, who were experienced, and they wanted to understand more about the business. Then the Harvard Graduate School of Business Administration, as it was called then, the Harvard Business School, they started the program which was titled MBA, Master of Business Administration. And that was in the year 1908. So Harvard was the pioneer in the sense, if we call MBA as the name, right? At that time, they had 15 faculty members in the first batch. They had 33 regular students, 47 special students, which means 33 were freshers and 47 were experienced people that year. And number of students, of course, increased. In 1908, it was 80, over 300 in 1920, and then it kind of stabilized around 800, 900. And in 1930, it was 1070. In fact, it went down from there. So right now we have around 900 to 930 students in each batch of Harvard. So that's where all this started. Moving on, what was the Indian scenario? How did it happen in India? So XLRI Jamshedpur, Xavier's Labor Relations Institute, Jamshedpur was the first. It was established in the year 1949. Then we had IIS WBM. Many of you would have heard of this institute. So it is one of the oldest institutes in Calcutta, 1953, and so on. Then we had Faculty of Management Studies in New Delhi. Then we had all the IIMs getting in. We had National Institute of Industrial Engineering, NITI, which is famous for its operations management courses. They also started. And it started becoming popular. Then some interesting facts about the MBA programs. over the years, the program was not always so highly regarded. So now we should not be surprised. Initially, people thought that science or mathematics or those things were really important, which we call STEM these days, and commerce and management was not that highly regarded. It took almost 50 years. That's why it took almost 50 years for it to go international. That is from the US. US started it. And in 1950, Canada started that MBA program, right? Because it was not very popular. Then technology has had a great impact on the MBA program as it has on all the fields that we can think of. So in 1986, the Roy Kramer Graduate School of Business required every student to have a laptop computer. So in 1986, so that was the beginning of entrance of technology in the classroom, so to say. So they were given laptop computers and that's when it started. Obviously, they were all standalone machines. There was no internet, there was no network, but people started using that. So that was the initiation of technology, which we see today as digital transformation and digital everywhere. So that was the start. Then Columbia Business School required all students to have a laptop and standard software in 1992. So Columbia was a bit late in that. And in 1986, this business school started it. So that's how technology seeped into the MBA. Now, what is the current situation in India? In India, if we look, we have around 3.5 lakh graduate students pass out every year with an MBA or an equivalent degree, right? Business administration, business management, PG, DBA, whatever you call it. So 3.5 lakh. That is the kind of popularity this program has from the time when it was not considered very popular. And I looked at some sites online. MBA graduates are more employable than engineers. We always talk about employability. Okay, you have done this degree, you have this experience, but are you employable or not? So they compared MBAs and engineers, and they found MBAs more employable. First of all, they are postgraduates, so they have a little more of study experience and they might have worked in the industry or things like that. So that has helped. And another important thing or another reason why people should do MBA right now is sales and marketing jobs are plentiful. So this is a report from 2020. It was published in Live Mint. And a lot of students who do their marketing MBAs or even if a general management MBA, they have lots of opportunities in digital marketing related to technology sales. So lots of jobs are there. So that is one more reason why people should do MBA or why people prefer MBA today. Now, we think of this online MBA. ICFAI is very quick in launching this. But first online MBA was launched in 1994. You won't believe that. So as soon as technology started in 1994, that MBA was launched. And it was a university in Canada called Athabasca University. So I thought they were very early into this business. They were very early into teaching MBA online. So I did some research and I thought they would not have survived. But I looked at their website day before yesterday. They are still there and they are doing very good. And the statistics that you see here is from that university. So now the average age of the students there is 41. Employment rate is 100%. That is easy to understand because most of the people are working executives. So either they want to get a promotion within their organization or they want to switch industries. That also is something which MBA helps in switching industries. So 100% employment rate and 95% students recommended the university. So since 1994, they have been running this program. I couldn't get the number of students that they have, but it would be around 300 to 350, but it still is there. So digital is the present, digital was the past for them, and digital is going to be the future. So that's the kind of thing Athabasca University did. Now, if you look at the top 10 skills required, now this was published in LinkedIn. LinkedIn does a survey every year. So what are the top skills? What are the things that people need? So top 10 skills of 2025. So basically they are problem solving skills, self-management, working with people, that is teamwork, and technology use and development. So all these skills are taught in an MBA program. And especially if we talk about the case-based teaching method, the case-based pedagogy, all these skills are inculcated into the students and they are going to be the future skills. So if you think about analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and learning strategies, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, originality, and initiative. So you also participate in a lot of extracurricular activities. you work with your batchmates, you work with the corporate people, you do your summer internship, you do your internship with the industry people, with them you work on different projects. So all these skills, if not 100% of them, 90% of these skills you inculcate when you do an MBA program. So that is the reason why we should, or why someone should do it, right? Now, let's move on to the digital part of it. So this is what MBA is. Now, digital MBA, right now, all MBA programs are digital. You would know that, right? Since last year, because of this unfortunate pandemic, all of us, all the business schools, all the universities, all the schools have moved online, right? So everything is digital right now. So we have had experience over the last 1 year, what works, what doesn't work, how to get students engaged, and even companies are asking people to work from home, and they also are going digital. The interviews are digital, the internships are digital, everything is online. So it is basically an add-on to the physical classroom. You have lots of resources online which faculty members can use and students can also use, and make it a better experience. So I'll give you some examples. In an MBA education, we have something called management games and simulations, right? So they give you a real life experience as to how to solve a problem. If it's an optimization problem, how you solve it. So it would have been difficult in a physical classroom to use that and demonstrate that. But in an online environment or a digital environment, it's pretty easy because we have resources, we have websites, we have videos, and we have tools by which you can communicate the message of that case or of that game to the students pretty well. So that has been our experience. And apart from that, if you interact with the faculty members, if you interact with the students in an online mode, you get more experience, you get different perspectives from them. And with the breakout rooms, the technology available on Zoom, and now Google Meet has also started at breakout rooms. So what we can do, or what we do generally in a case-based discussion, is we divide the students into different groups, groups of 5 or groups of 10, and then they go into those breakout rooms where they can discuss the case, they can discuss the points, come out with a plan, come back to the main room and discuss with the faculty members. So these are some of the nitty-gritties which are helpful for the students, and they could not have been done in a classroom without creating a lot of noise, right? Either you had to ask students to go out of the classroom and discuss for 10-15 minutes and come back, or it would be pure commotion in the classroom. So that can be avoided using technology. And the biggest factor that I see is the collaboration with the industry has grown multifold, and that is the USP, that is the key, right? Industry interaction is the most important part of an MBA, and that's what we are all looking forward to, we all look forward to. So collaborating with the industry has become easier. We have been able to invite a lot of top management people to deliver lectures and to be a participant in a conference or give a keynote address, because it's easier online, right? You don't have to travel, you don't have to plan, you just have to find some time on your calendar and you are able to interact. And the interactions can carry on because you are connected through different social media platforms, and those interactions can continue, and you can keep asking questions to the industry people. So that is the biggest advantage that I see. So international and the top business leaders in India, all of them were very helpful, and they were very kind to participate in these lectures or to give these lectures. Another thing that this helps is all the new topics that are coming. They are not very new, but the areas in which jobs are there now. So blockchain, for example, analytics. So in this, a lot of part of that is dependent on softwares, right? A lot of it is dependent on softwares. So softwares are easier to demonstrate or easier to show to students online. So that is one more advantage of doing a digital MBA, that you will be able to understand them better and you can work along with the instructor for that in that scenario. So those are the things that I would like you to focus on. Now, what's on offer in an online MBA program? So most of the things that we were able to do in a physical classroom, we can still do in an online MBA program or a digital program. But in addition, First is interaction with global business leaders. So you saw that I spoke about that. So I think it was a record for us last year. We invited so many people. It was, I think, the highest ever. And it was all possible due to the digital medium. Online simulation and management games, I gave you that example. So there are a lot of resources available. For example, MIT has an open learning resource. From there, you can get simulations and management games. And there are other lots of providers, lots of vendors who come up with different management games specific to a domain. You have in marketing, you have in finance, you have in operations, you have in HR. And specific to those students, you can play those games and learn skills and understand teamwork, because most of them are team games. Again, you can go into the breakout rooms and discuss what the concept is and how to take it forward. So those things are possible in this scenario. Then interactive cases. So interactive cases are also possible through this. Then asynchronous learning is also an advantage. Why? Because if you lose focus, for example, so in a classroom, in a physical classroom, if you lose focus for 10, 15 minutes and you are not able to follow a particular concept that the professor is discussing, then you are lost. You might have to ask the professor later, you might have to ask your colleague later in the hostel or wherever in the dorm, and then come to it. But all the lectures are recorded in this digital scenario, and you can always go back to these videos and try to understand if you missed understanding something. So asynchronous learning is something which is an advantage in the case of digital MBA or online learning, online MBA. Now, there would definitely be some negatives. Not everything is positive. Negative is sometimes the engagement level is down. Engagement in the sense, because of connectivity issues, maybe people are not able to switch on their videos or they get disconnected. So they have a question on their minds, but they're not able to ask, or a lot of people ask simultaneously. Those things are there. But over a period of time, those things will also be sorted and it will become a very interesting learning experience. Now, regarding some more experiences, so in this digital environment, what we have found, the collaboration, I spoke about that and I'll speak about it more. The collaboration between faculty members and collaboration between different institutes has also increased, because you don't have to, you just have to set up a meeting and you can just attend that meeting and talk and discuss. You don't have to travel. So earlier, that travel used to require a lot of time and you had to plan long term for that. You had to plan at least 2-3 months in advance if you had to travel to a different city. So the collaboration between faculty members has increased. Collaboration between different institutes or maybe different branches of the institutes have also increased. And like I am working with a lot of faculty members in different IBS branches on different topics, and the interaction is easier right now. Okay, so that also helps in this. And students can also interact with other B school students, right? Which was not possible earlier. It is easier. And because of the pandemic, I think people have this attitude, they are more helpful. That's what I have found out. So if you ask a question to a senior guy in the industry, he or she will respond. The chances are he or she will respond. So that will also help you in your learning journey. And all of us have to keep learning all our lives. And MBA program, especially digital MBA, so you don't have to come to the physical classroom in Hyderabad or in any other location. So wherever you are, you can register from there, you can join the program and you can attend the classes and write the tests and write the exams and get it done. And you would have seen, especially if you are an engineer or if you don't have an MBA right now, and that's why you will do an MBA, you will find that at a certain point, you'll get stuck in the corporate world. You won't get a promotion because you don't have this degree. I'm not generalizing it, but for the majority of the people, this is the case. And especially if you want to shift, I have found a lot of people who want to make a shift to analytics. They are into program management or they are into coding and they want to shift into analytics. They want to shift in the blockchain area. So maybe in the same company or in a different company. So in that case, if you can do this online MBA program, it will be easier for you to make that shift. So you would already be doing a lot of courses online through the MOOCs, the massive open online courses like Coursera, EDX and all that. But a degree, an MBA degree will be a more structured program. and you will have your internship, you will have regular interaction with the faculty members. So it will be worth your while. So I think these are the reasons this digital MBA is something that people should pursue. And I will stop there and I will hand over to Professor Prasad. If you have any questions, we can discuss that. So online MBA is the way to go. That was the presentation from me. I would be ready to answer questions. Happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Sanjay Fuloria. That was a very interesting uh, presentation that you have taken us through. I think you have covered the entire landscape, starting with the MBA when it started over 100 years or before that, and how it has evolved into the new age requirements. Especially while we are talking, we are undergoing something very, very new and strange. We are actually experiencing the pandemic, and the change is completely characterized by the pandemic because the change is accelerated in terms of digital education and digital presence. And therefore, in this new context, what are the advantages? The entire landscape has been very well presented by Professor Sanjay. Now, what we would like to do is we'll invite Professor R. Prasad. Professor R. Prasad is the architect of online MBA program. He is now heading the academic wing of the entire ICFAI group, and he has got a rich experience of almost 3 decades. He himself has been an entrepreneur before, and a very good blend of industry experience as well as academics at very, very senior level within ICFAI and before ICFAI. Uh, he's from IIT Mumbai and I am Kolkata. He doesn't need much of an introduction. But without much ado, I request Professor R. Prasad to jump in and take us through the other advantages, the details, and the benefits, and what should we expect from the online MBA from ICFAI Online. So over to you, Professor R. Prasad.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhakar. And thanks a lot, Dr. Sanjay Fuloria. I think you have landed us into this landing page of how the online MBA is different from other MBAs. I think you've given the background as well as the advantages and the leverages which are there, which are currently being used by the campus MBA, and it makes for a good beginning to contrast and see where what is useful for whom. So I'll try and get straight into that. And there are quite a many questions. There were about 39 questions which came in because of the pre-engagement Google Sheet we gave. And there were about 3 or 4 more after I last saw it at about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And so we'll try and handle those questions in the end together. I'd like to give you a brief presentation on how we have built up this online MBA program and how it is different and what are the what you call as the value propositions and unique selling propositions of this online MBA. It has taken us quite a time. We started our journey about 4 years back into digitization first, and then digitalization, and then digital transformation. So these are words which are used by many corporates. So what I'll do is I'll shift you to the PPT that I have, and I'll take you through that. So I think I'd like to start with the pandemic situation because it has accelerated the already happening change in the world. And I've used the keyword here as agility because I think lots of organizations which were not thinking about digital transformations is now beginning to think about digital transformation. And here you have a quotation which is quite, you would have understood by now, having gone through the pandemic. So essentially, we're talking about a fundamental shift in how human beings live, work, and play, and therefore how the environment needs to shift. And I've added my own word that, it's not just live, learn, live, work, and play. And as far as education goes, it's learn. So we are trying to address the question, how is agility relevant for education? Here, I think we need to shift our lens to the higher education scenario and look at, what's been happening. I think, it's not just about the best of schools. If you take the Indian scenario, India happens to be the country with the largest number of business school students. I'm talking about MBA in the world. by far. And the numbers were already quoted by the graduate numbers were already quoted by Dr. Fuloria. If you look at all the programs put together, it comes to close to 5 lakhs of those enrolled. 3.5 of them graduate. And if you look at the employability of these graduates, whether it is done by AICTE uploads data every year and it's there on their portal. Or if you look at the India Skills Report, which is released every year, it's been released in 2021, it's slightly less than 50%. So this includes the top schools as well as the others. The AICTE data puts it at about 50-52% of actual placements. So now we come to a very, very important element of higher education, and that is the need for learning outcomes, the focus on learning outcomes. I think we have been seeing that in the environment for quite some time now. The UGC talks about it, the MHRD talks about it, the AICTE talks about it. And learning outcomes are one thing to put on the website and to put for accreditors or regulators to look at. But learning outcomes are very, very different when you drill it down. IBS has the experience because of the ACSB accreditation, which insists on it. So here I'll put your attention on this quotation by the Nobel laureate Herbert Simon. And I think that is what is extremely valid. The huge segment in India which is not able to perhaps implement what is being said here. The meaning of knowing has shifted from being able to remember and repeat information to being able to find and use it. To be able to find and use it is the criticality. I think this is a skill in itself. Many times when you show small newspaper clippings to people and you ask them to relate it to something, they find it pretty difficult to relate it. Now, how do you innovate if you're unable to look outside, if you're unable to see what others are doing, you're unable to connect to what they're doing and unable to shift it to your landscape? So I think innovation is primarily driven by your ability to find what is relevant and to use it. So there is no doubt about it. Learning must take center stage. There is no doubt about this. Higher educational institutions need to put learning center stage, and this means something very, very different. So let's see what that is. So what we are trying to do in the online MBA program, the fully online MBA program, is that how do you produce personalized outcomes for the week, the month, the course, and the program? What happens is technology gives you a lot of power to do analytics. You can have people who are categorized into personas. You can look at what is needed for different types of personas. You can look at the learning environment suitable to them, the learning process which are suitable to them, and you can design this. So this is one thing that we have tried to do. The second is that when you look at learning, there are three players involved. First is the self, the second is the context, and the third is the concept. The self is extremely important because self, there is a psychology which comes with the self. There are learning styles which come from the self. And fortunately or unfortunately, I would say more unfortunately, I think in higher education, the use of educational psychology, which is very high in schools, has not prevailed. Educational psychology is extremely important when you come to personalization. So you have an intermix of the self, and then you have the context. Context is so many things. It is the industry, it is the workplace, it is the time, it is the location. So what happens in one location is not what happens in another location. What is okay for one time, a case written at one time is not what the case is today. So this is the second dimension. The third dimension is related to the concept. Concepts don't change very often because a lot of education and knowledge is abstraction. So what you do is they do modify. New knowledge does come in, so it gets built upon. But compared to the context and compared to the self, concept is far more stable. Now, how do you mix all these three, and how do you therefore look for personalized outcomes is something that we have been working on, and technology is an enabler here. So what did we do? We went back and did a lot of research. We did a lot of research on learning psychology, instructional psychology, what corporates do. And then we looked at what we needed to do. So we have used these kind of what are very popular, research enablers. We've used Gagne Bricks 9 instructional events, which is used in corporates. We've used the SAM instructional design model. We've used Kirkpatrick's assessment model. And we've used a large number of principles because we are talking now about personalization. Some of the principles I'd like to spend time on. One is Imagineering. To me, knowledge is one thing, but if you are able to use it, you should be able to imagine. I took this example earlier. I show you a small news clipping about the lack of oxygen in many places in the country. Now I ask you to connect to what is an opportunity for your company or or a challenge for your company or maybe somebody else's. So how do you imagine? So imagination skills are the first thing that any business student must have. They must be able to see around and see what is an opportunity for them, what is a challenge for them, and be able to adapt. Post-COVID, during COVID, we have seen that change has accelerated. So if imagination is strongly connected to knowledge, those guys will be able to do innovation far better. The second dimension is scenario-based learning. Scenario-based learning is essentially where you give small cases, because working population, people who are doing online MBA programs and not doing full-time campus programs, though they are also online, they have a lot of other things to do. They are not expected to sit for 5 or 6 hours and continuously learn. They have other things to do. So in order to make it far more application oriented, we have looked at scenario-based learning. Micro-learning is because attention spans today are pretty less. So if you have something which you can consume, or what you call, in about 5 minutes time, you find it comfortable to do that and then move on. Then you can come back later and do another 5 minutes. So that's micro-learning. Then you have mastery learning. Mastery learning is a principle where those who are not so good in the subject get additional support specifically, additional strategies specifically, so that they can reach the same learning goals. Technology has enabled this. We have gamification which builds up, peer kind of driven learning, and lets you see what the other person is doing, how much they have completed, and complete accordingly. We also have used peer learning, situated learning, and constructivism as a principle. Now I'd like to spend a minute on constructivism, because one of the questions is also related to that. See, constructivism is how an individual constructs knowledge. What I construct as meaning for something that I hear is not what somebody else constructs in their minds. And therefore, there is a personalization in which the neural pathways are built in the mind. This depends on my background, my bias, my kind of mindset put together with the ability to understand. So all these principles have been used. It will take many more sessions to get into each of these and see how it's getting used as well as how it's useful. So I leave it at that here. Now, any learning outcome driven effort needs to very carefully look at the learning environment as well as the learning processes. So let's look at what the learning environment here is. The first is that we have our own customized ICFAI built e-learning environment, where there are multiple learning engagements with gamification built in. The second is we have very heavily used learning objects. Learning objects, the word is taken from object-oriented programming. Learning objects are reusable. That means if you have something related to motivation and you have a concept in motivation, you can make an object, learning object just around that. So it may be a 5-minute object, and then you can reuse it in a number of places. So we have about 18 types of micro-learning objects, multi-format, multimedia objects to appeal to various learner styles and experience. A guy who's an auditory learner is not like a guy who's a visual learner. It's not like a guy who's a kinesthetic learner. So you've got various types of learnings, and we have tried to increase the range by which you will be able to learn by using these learning objects. These are all micro-learning objects. So our objects are anywhere between 2 minutes to 15 minutes. So you can see how useful it is to the potential student. The object design typically has it's a 3-tier structure. It starts with a story. A story is a nano case. It's a small situation. It then moves to the concept, whatever concept you're trying to communicate. And then it moves to a small activity to reinforce whether you have learned it or you'd like to look at it again. This is consistently used in whatever we do. We consistently use this. So this is about learning objects, something that we have put a lot of emphasis on and which is completely prevalent. So if you look at what numbers we're talking about, we have about 1,000+ nano cases per course, which aid in scenario-based learning. So each of these is combined with a concept, combined with an activity. Sometimes the concept is hidden so that you identify it. Sometimes you are asked to explain a situation for that particular concept. So the variations take place between these so that you're able to build on your learning. The other thing about the learning environment is, and this is one place where there are some questions. See, an online MBA does not mean that you can't go to a retail store and do a survey, or go to a supermarket and do a survey, or go to an organization and speak to a person, or call up a senior level guy and do an interview. It doesn't mean that you can't do that. The online aspect of it is relevant only for how the program is getting delivered. So the other learning places, which are spaces which are open, and if you're working, your workplace is the place. If you're not working and you've got more time, you have got the marketplace, you've got the internet, and you've got your own networks. So all these are learning spaces from which you can borrow. And because you are not sitting in a campus full time, you have far more opportunity to blend all these other learning spaces and make it a bit more personalized into what you want to learn. So this is part of what we call the learning environment. The next is what we call learning processes. So there are 10 types of learning activities. In this, the live session with the faculty is only one of them. The live session with the faculty is used for a specific purpose. And this, I think this is where I'll respond to some of the other questions. The major difference between campus programs and online learning programs is the amount of synchronous time that you get with the faculty, which is much higher in a campus program as specified. For instance, in an IBS campus program, you have 3 sessions of 1 hour 15 minutes each for a 3-credit program. While in an online program, though you do 10 hours of learning, you have 1 hour of interaction with the faculty, and the nature of the interaction is very different. So this too is something that one needs to understand to put it into perspective. The way in which the entire learning experience is understood when it comes to a campus program is very different from how it is done when it is a online MBA program. The startup, the design is different. So there are 10 types of learning activities, and you may choose to do some of them. You may not choose to do some of them. You may choose to do all of them. So it all depends on how you pick up. Then you come to the assessment. The assessment is completely driven by real life based situational assessment. We do it at 3 levels: the foundational level, the intermediate level, and the application level. Why so? Because these are 3 levels at which you are able to first understand whether a concept underlies a situation. So if you're given a newspaper article and I ask you, okay, now from your human resources function, please tell me what concept this relates to. You should be first able to do that, because that's when your experience and your conceptual framework marry. If they don't marry, you can't transfer learning. So what you've learned in one place, if you want to generalize, you go to another job and you want to use the same skill there. In fact, you want to make the skill a competency because you're able to use it in various settings. That's when a skill transfers to a competency. You should be able to get your foundational level right. And then the next level is that of intermediate level and application level, which go up. So each of these levels is paid attention when we come to assessment, and we focus on that. So you're able to build up your employability skills. There is always a misconception that employability cannot be built into an online program. In fact, the employability situation in the country generally for MBA is terrible. I was referring to it earlier. I'm not referring to the top B schools. I'm not referring to very good brands. I'm referring to a lot of affiliated colleges, a lot of AICT approved colleges which are at the lower rung. Employability is a terrible problem. And one of the reasons for it is that context is not married with concept, and that is not in turn married with the self. So if you're able to design your approach in a way in which these 3 come together, then you put your learning on track, you put your assessment on track, then you can move towards learning outcomes. If you don't do these three, your learning outcomes are meant only for the website. It will be there for the website, like many companies have mission, vision, all that. But if you look at what's happening on the ground, you're unable to connect it back up. So it's necessary that you work backwards, or rather when you start itself, you've got all these things very clearly and you're able to measure it at stages and periodically. And one of the major innovations we have done, I mean, the others are also innovations, is that we have begun to look at a learner's journey map with feedback. What does this mean? See, when you try to enroll for an online MBA program from IFHE, you have to go through a selection process. The selection process is basically to profile you. We develop a learner's profile. The learner's profile helps us to understand what are your strengths, your weaknesses, what are your aspirations. This is the starting point of the journey. So you may be a person who wants to get into supply chain, but has not got into supply chain. You're into something else. Now you want to do an MBA and you want to do it in operations management and you want to move into supply chain. So what happens is that when we do the selection process, we map you. And then what we call that your dream. At that stage, that's your aspiration. We map that, we look at your strengths, weaknesses, and then we put that also. This is made into learning analytics as a starting point. Then every month, based on the progress that you have made on each of the elements, we are able to give you feedback. We are able to tell you whether you're moving north, which is towards your learning outcome, or you're moving south, or you're moving tangentially east or west. We're also able to tell you that this is what you need to do. If you want to get back to your learning outcome, this is what you need to do. In a remote learning environment, this is extremely important. In campus, you're there face to face. You can keep sharing feedback. Faculty can call you, counsel you. It's not as easy in a fully online program. So here, the huge degree of personalization which takes place. And in certain cases, there is counseling which is needed in order to understand the difficulties of the other person and be able to say, how do you move forward? So this is the learner's journey map with feedback. And needless to say, technology helps you doing all this. Technology is used to amplify the power of synchronicity and asynchronicity. So if you're putting in about 10 hours of learning a week for a particular course, 1 hour of this is what is live. And given that there are people who are working, they may not even be able to attend that. Of course, they can go back and see the video, no doubt. But the fact is, the remaining 9 hours of asynchronous learning is as important. So technology, we have leveraged technology in order to amplify this. Let's move to the next step. The other major thing that we do is that we are also going to map your career pathway. Your profile assessment is done at the beginning. During the first year, there are certain exercises by which we try to help you build your self-awareness. A lot of people make aspirations without looking at themselves. And therefore you see that a lot of times they go into a job and then you very quickly get out of the job. Maybe if you had put a little bit of self-awareness beginning, it may not have been like that. So self-awareness, career exploration and choice is something that is done in the first year. In some cases, it can get over right in the first semester. So this needs help. It needs career services support. We are looking at industry connections, industry interface, which can do that. A lot of value addition which can go to the student based on this. Then the third element is what is called a personal development plan, and this also maps to the learner's journey. So what do you need to do? How do you get there? As somebody asked, you're not able to speak up. You're not able to open up. Your oral skills are not as good. How do you develop them? So this comes into your personal development plan, and what happens monthly as the learner's journey will reflect the progress on the personal development plan. And lastly, once you've identified that, okay, this is the kind of sector and this is the kind of companies that I'd like to look at, then it is a question of how do you showcase your competencies? Because often it is about selling yourself properly to the organization, assuming that you have the competencies, and then packaging whatever you have done properly. Student portfolio is nothing new. It's used a lot in the UK, in Australia. And the student portfolio development is something that will help you to be in the right places and be seen in the right places, in the right way. So here I quickly summarize in terms of what's very, very different. First, It is completely digitized. See, digitized is when you make analog into digital. You've got a hard paper, you're making a PDF of that. That is digitized. Digitalized is when you convert a process and make it fully online. So if you've got a fully online evaluation process seamlessly operating, that is digitalization. Digital transformation is when you're able to generate outcomes for your organization based on all these many processes put together. So if you ask me, digitization of education, yes, it has happened because of COVID. Digitalization of education, yes, to some extent. Digital transformation, you'll find that it will be there in fully online MBAs, whoever may be offering it, because nothing is face to face. When the campus opens after COVID, students will want to go back to campus because the value proposition is built around that. But when you want to do an education system, whether it's an MBA or any other program, then you need to target digital transformation. So remember that the model is not the same as the faculty teaching. So I think this is fundamentally something that takes time to understand. So we have leveraged this by what we call unstructuring and disaggregating the learning process, making it into smaller things, digitizing and digitalizing it, putting it back together and digitally transformation. Why? For learner centricity. So learners are repeatedly given opportunities to evaluate real situations. I told you that there's more than 1,000 per course, and respond using concept and framework. This increases their ability to be alert to the opportunity around. And this actually is agility. So when you in a post-COVID kind of a situation, you should be able to very quickly respond to what's happening nearby you. So the first thing is being able to connect. Then learners have very high flexibility with content types. You want to do one type, you don't want to do another type. You can still reach your learning outcomes by doing that. So this flexibility is very high in a fully online MBA, in particularly in what we have built. Then those who do not have experience, the situated learning, also called cognitive apprenticeship, helps them to visualize what happens in the corporate world through all these small real life situations. And then what happens is there is a virtual apprenticeship which gets formed in their mind. It generates learning outcomes for all types of learners, whether they're experienced or new. The experienced learner will come in, bring a situation, map it with a conceptual framework, and see how it can be integrated and transferred to another kind of an experience. While the new graduate would come in, he would look at the variety of situations, he would generate the skills to connect the concept with the context involved, and therefore be able to also transfer that, though he does not have the advantage of the added experience. So overall, we're talking about outcome orientation, which is extremely high in this online MBA, and is also about the agility, learning to learn. When you have to do go through 1,000 small situations and be able to relate, your mind will become agile. So you may not do 5,000, you may do 500, you may do 200, but you're going to do it for many courses. So that very habit will make you start connecting faster. Our experience of the last 4 years trying to build this in terms of the quality process we have taught us that this is something which can be learned and should be learned. So today we're talking about lifelong learning. It's not about just, okay, I do an MBA, get a job. The situation requires you to learn, it is called learning to learn. That is lifelong learning. So this is the unique aspect of the program. I'll now come to the questions stage. And here what I would do is I'll first take all those who took the pains to ask questions. There may be more. As I told you, I had about 39 questions when I last looked at it. The first one is, what is the significance of your online MBA program? And I think this question is more about the fully online MBA program. So, of course, I'd like Dr. Sanjay also to chip in to what is being said here from his own experience. I'd just like to respond to that answer first. The online MBA program essentially increases the access of quality management education to many. See, many good campus programs, there are limitation of seats. If you get in, you get in. If you want IBS Hyderabad, you need to get a certain rank, you need to write the test at that particular time, you need to spare your time for 2 years. And there are many more who aspire for management education. So the online MBA program increases the access. The second is it digitalizes, and digitally transforms education. management education. Very, very few institutions have been entitled to this. There are about 22 institutions which have been given approval for the online MBA after, the UGC and the AICT looking at what has been submitted. So because of their NIRF of NAC grading, they were able to apply automatically. But then these were also checked up, and then finally they were entitled to offer the program. So all in all, this online MBA is highly innovative in its approach to learning and assessment, as you have seen in the presentation. This is about the question which is about significance of your online MBA. Dr. Sanjay, would you like to respond?
I have nothing to add, sir. I think you have answered it quite well.
Okay, let's move to the second question. There are three questions by this person who's asked this question. So I'll take the first one. Online MBA in the digital world is good. However, how would this program address the deficiency of a fresh learner devoid of any practical experience? See, experience can never be substituted. So let's start with that caveat. So somebody's got 5 years experience, a fresher is not able to substitute that experience. That reality we need to understand. So then what can be done? That's what the question answers. I think the first point is the learning object design. I have touched upon it in the presentation. A real life situation nugget. If you're going to do 1,000 such in a course, your understanding of not just the concepts, but also the varying contexts in which these are really getting used. These are all where it's really getting used. They would step up. They would step up significantly. Then what happens is you remember that this is possible. You remember that these things are there, and therefore you're able to connect it far more. So this is of the situated learning that we bring in, or what we call as cognitive apprenticeship, is what is useful to the fresh learner. So here they go through the cycle, what we call context, concept, context cycle. That means look at the context, see if there's a concept in it. Look at the concept, see where you can apply it in a context. So this is something that freshers will be able to do quite a bit. The second question by this person is, Dr. Sanjay, on the first one, anything?
Yeah, so I just like to add here. So that problem is there in the physical MBA also, isn't it? Because freshers will always be at a disadvantage because companies prefer people who can join and start contributing from day one. But the advantage, as Professor Prasad said, for freshers, because micro learning is involved and there are small snippets of things which they can ingest, the freshers can ingest quickly, that would be an advantage there. So I think online would be a better option for them than a physical MBA.
Second question here is, what customizations are being offered in line with the projected new normal that is going to arise post-pandemic? Dr. Sanjay?
So in the online MBA, I mean, everything is online. So whether it is pandemic or non-pandemic, everything is going to be the same. Those changes will be more valid in a physical MBA than on an online MBA. So I don't think there would be any change as such structurally to the program whenever this pandemic ends.
Yeah, thanks. I think, the point I wanted to also add there is, see the need to develop an agile mindset is a requirement which has come out brutally during the pandemic. And I think this program is looking at developing an agile mindset. It's not about X course or Y course. It's not about X area or Y area. It's about, learning to learn. You have a challenge in front of you. We can't keep saying, this won't work, that won't work. You need to know how to figure it out. So an agile mindset, continuous lifelong learning, this is going to be a new normal post-pandemic. And we are trying to do our bit into that as far as the program goes. The third question is many countries do not recognize online degrees unless they are from Ivy Leagues, and that too pursued by professionals having solid practical exposure. How would this program overcome that issue from a global perspective? Dr. Sanjay.
I think that is basically a question of mindset. Now, if you have been following the news, so now Google, Facebook, YouTube, all these new age companies, they even accept those certificates, right? Even if you don't have a degree, they hire people. So that mindset will change. It's already changing. So maybe they don't recognize it now, but by the time the first batch graduates, all the companies, they only want people who have the skills to do a particular job. So that will happen. The change will happen and they will start accepting this online degree.
Thank you. I think what I'd like to add is that, we have just come into the market. there's a huge segment out there which needs these kind of programs. And obviously, there are going to be many people. We want to set our benchmarks into how this is getting delivered. And we hope that, we are looked at it as a very high quality provider of the fully online MBA program. That's one part of it. So right now we'd not be bothered about, countries in case they do discount it. The second point is that we want to bring out is that the campus program is AACSB accredited. So it's not as if there is no IV word around. I mean, AACSB accreditation is rare. The AACSB accreditation speaks for itself. So that speaks of the institutional intent. Online MBA is new. So, we have not got into anything like that. But as far as the campus program goes, it is AACSB accredited. And I think that makes a difference. And a lot of employers globally over the last many years have recognized ICFAI degrees. I mean, countries is one matter, but I think more important than that is the employer should be able to recognize the degree. And I think that helps. The next question is about the online MBA versus the regular MBA. Dr. Sanjay, would you like to?
The difference is the question, difference between online and physical?
Online MBA and regular MBA, yes.
Regular MBA. Okay, so right now in the pandemic situation, what we have done or what we have tried to do as faculty members or as an institute is try to convert whatever happened in the physical classroom into an online mode, which is kind of difficult. But in the online MBA, the online MBA program that we are going to start, everything has been built from ground up. So it is innovative, and the way Professor Prasad described that, everything is built from scratch. So that is fully compatible with the online mode. I think that would be my response.
Okay, the points I'd like to add are, you see, the learner profile is different. If you want to get into IBS Hyderabad, you have to write a test, you have to get that score, you have to compete, you should come in a certain rank. And if you have not applied, or if you're not in that rank, you don't get through. While you may still be aspiring and you may still have talent to do an MBA program. So the learner profile is very, very different between what happens in a regular MBA from good B schools like IBS and what happens in a fully online MBA program, where there'll be a lot of working population segment, people who want to go their career vertically or horizontally, career shifts, family businesses. So the learner profile is different. The learning environment also will differ. Because assuming that COVID is something that, maybe 1 or 2 years, campuses will be back in action, maybe even earlier. The learning environment in a campus is the campus. It's the student life. It's the campus life. It's the student clubs. The entire value proposition there is very different from what you find in a virtual learning environment. So I think that's very different. The third is that consequently, the learning process differ. Compulsorily, there have to be 3 lectures of 1 hour, 15 minutes, which need to be done when you do a 3-credit course in a regular program, while in an online program, the learning process are structured very differently because the assumptions are different. So I think this is what I would like to add as far as the difference goes, and they are meant for very different needs. The next question is, what are the contemporary specialized courses, programs in MBA suitable to global requirements? Dr. Sanjay.
I think the question is more about, is it about specialization, or I am not very clear about that. So maybe healthcare is one option, right? MBA healthcare, for example, which is very suitable right now, and MBA analytics for that matter. And we have all those courses, though it is not called MBA analytics as such, but we have included analytics courses across all the functions. So you'll have HR analytics, you'll have operations analytics, financial analytics, marketing analytics, and all the companies or all the organizations have analytics teams. So that ways it is good. Then we also have blockchain as a course within finance. So we are trying to include all those things which are current and which are relevant and which will increase the employability of the students, I think. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, the points, I think the question is not very clear to me too. So, the thoughts which came to my mind is that it depends on the learner profile. If you've got a learner profile which comes from a metro city, very English educated, top in communication skills, very high on aspiration, wants to land up in Wall Street, then what you're looking for is different. and you may be from, may not be, your aspirations may not be of that nature. Well, what you need to do is different. So I think a learner profile will count. And secondly, as Dr. Sanjay said, the combination of technology and business helps. So I think everywhere technology is coming in, whether it is finance or whether it is HR or whether it's marketing, sales, call it what you may, healthcare, everywhere technology is coming in, and they're coming in very specific shapes and forms. So some of them Dr. Sanjay mentioned. So a combination of technology and business does help if your aspiration is global. Of course, healthcare is a huge area. The next question is why online MBA? Why not full-time MBA? Requirements. Dr. Sanjay.
So if you can get into a good B school, into a full-time program, and you think that you don't have any opportunity cost involved, then better get into a full-time program. But if you are working and you don't want to miss out on the salary that you are earning, or maybe you are working in a business, you are an entrepreneur and you don't want to waste time and you want to do it along with whatever you are currently doing, then online MBA should be your choice. So like Professor Prasad said, these are two different profiles of students who will choose either.
I think that is reasonably clear. The personal needs and constraints that one has is going to put restrictions on what you can do and what you cannot do. And I think you should go for what is best in whatever profile you have. The next question is, why is a degree mandatory to show that you have upskilled yourself? Is it because the company needs a proof, or does it genuinely bring a change in you as a person after having completed a degree? Dr. Sanjay.
That's a very difficult question to answer. Yeah, we definitely hope. So once you get into college or once you get into university, you interact with your colleagues, you interact with your faculty members, you interact with the industry people, and the same thing will happen in an online MBA program also. So hopefully some amount of change will happen in you. And in fact, a lot of change. I have seen students who have entered, when they entered, they were different. And after finishing 2 years, after completing their MBA, their whole mindset changed, their attitude changed, and the kind of skills that they learned over the 2 year was different. So I think that change happens, but you have to be open to learning now. If you decide, if you think that I know everything, I can't learn anything from my professor, I can't learn anything from my from my colleagues, then it's a different issue. Otherwise, you can learn something from anyone, something from everyone, in fact, and you'll have lots of those opportunities in a college environment where you are getting in for a degree.
Thank you. I think, yes, I think, that's extremely relevant. The aim of the institution to transform something in you, which is essentially what learning is important. And I think both the campus program as well as the online MBA program from ICFAI, IFHE have that. The other thing is, I think irrespective of the institution that you come from, if the employer does not see the knowledge, skills, and mindsets which need to be demonstrated in the workplace, it doesn't matter where you are or what degree you did. It doesn't matter anyway. So at a broad level, that's one thing. But the point is, when you're spending 2 years in an institution, and I'm referring here not to the good institutions in India, I'm referring to many other institutions, you're spending 2 full years on an MBA. What did you transform yourself into? This is the question that is connected to upskilling. It's not just the skills. Skills are specific, but there's also your personality which you carry around, the knowledge that you have gained, what you'll use these competencies for. And I think that is also important. So I think what you need to do in those 2 years is very important. And considering that you have close to 3.5 lakh graduates who come out with an MBA, this is all the more important. The next question is, how much relevant is the online MBA when you have so many online platforms with richer knowledge base? Dr. Sanjay.
So the online platforms that you're talking about, they are very specific to a particular skill, right? They are mostly skill enhancement. So you can do a course on analytics, you can do a course on epidemiology, or you can do something on blockchain. So they are not structured like an MBA program where you get to learn, where you get to participate in case-based learning, and you don't get interactive simulations or management games and things like that. So the experience in an MBA program would be richer. Whereas if you want to learn only one skill or two skills, or you want to do a particular project, if you are working somewhere, then you can learn those skills on MOOCs or dedicated websites, but the entire package would be missing there, right? So I think that is the difference.
Yes, I concur with you. I think when you want to get into a leadership position, you need to know far more than just the specific skill. In this age of change and evolving businesses, a full view of the business is helpful because everything is interconnected today. Therefore, if you know one thing and you don't know the other thing in the business, then it's not going to be helpful. So if you want to aspire for a career in management, an MBA will be particularly helpful.
So I just got one point in my mind.
Sure.
So if you talk about projects in the present day corporate world, all projects are complex, right? So you need to know finance, you need to know HR, you need to know marketing, you need to know everything that is there, at least the basics. So if you don't know that, and that you can't get from a MOOC, right? So if you don't get that, then you won't be able to handle projects, you won't be able to interact with clients. So that is where an MBA degree will help, because all the companies, they want to hire a rock star, right? Who knows everything about everything.
Thank you. The next question, what is mentioned in the certificate? Is it distance or online? I'll take that. At the back of the certificate, the MBA degree certificate very clearly mentioned that the mode is online, not distance, the mode is online. And if you take a campus program, the certificate will in the future mention that it is from ICFAI Business School, Hyderabad. I think this is how it gets differentiated. So clearly the word online will be there in the back. The next question is about how can learner involvement be ensured in the online program, encouraging students to participate, speak, etc. I think these are a couple of questions combined. So Dr. Sanjay.
Yeah, so student engagement is a challenge. It's more from a connectivity perspective, because people don't have bandwidth, so they are not able to switch on their cameras, they're not able to continue the class, maybe they get disconnected and all that. But people who have good bandwidth, I have found that they are in fact engaging more with the faculty members. So that's been my experience over the last 1 year. So we are also learning about that. So that's why we talk about interactive games, we talk about simulations where the students are working along with us. So what we do in order to engage students, we conduct polls parallelly in the class. So 5 minutes if I teach, or 10 minutes I teach, I'll ask them questions and then they will respond through a polling mechanism. So that ways the engagement is more, but we are also learning. So I don't have an answer for that, but engagement levels have definitely been going up over the last 1 year. So I hope that will continue.
I think the point I'd like to add here is that learner engagement will always be a challenge. More because people don't pay attention continuously, wherever they may be. I mean, you're watching your favorite serial. I think even then, after some time, you get a bit worried about what happened elsewhere, etc. So, paying attention for fairly long periods of time is a challenge. And here, the point I want to add is, I mean, this is for overall for, everyone, is that I'd like to quote this gentleman called William Arthur Ward, and it says, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teacher inspires. So I think this is a quality that teachers, good teachers have already picked up. And I think, teachers who are finding it difficult, they'll have to look at how they can get in inspiration. This is one. And the other point I want to make is motivation is the biggest challenge in education, not IQ. If you look around, if you look at the best institutions, if you look at the institutions which are not so good, everywhere you find that motivation is the biggest challenge in education. Everyone has got IQ. Otherwise, they wouldn't have graduated. So there is some level of IQ in everyone. And one of the things that we need to be, we are specifically trying, because we will get a very diverse cohort in the online MBA, is we are aiming to upscale this by the use of one, technology, two, the use of nano cases, micro learning and gamification. So this is an effort in that particular direction. More importantly, the facilitation that you do and the personalization you bring in with students matters greatly. I think as a teacher, the facilitation that you do and the personalization you bring in will matter, apart from the technology, as also the motivation. Next question is about the future of the online MBA in India versus an international MBA. Dr. Sanjay.
So it's very difficult to predict, but definitely online MBA is going to flourish because one thing the country has is population, right? We have so many students and we have a problem of access, right? People don't have access to good institutes. So if institutes like universities like ICFAI, they come up with these programs, and like Professor Prasad said, there are 22 more universities who have got this permission. So it will increase access for students. So I think this is going to flourish. Now, if you're comparing with international MBAs, I think it's a different profile of students again. So can you afford to go there for a 2-year full-time program? One is that, and then the job scenario there also. I mean, if we talk about the US and Europe, so job scenario is not that good there also. So I don't know how will it pan out after 2 years, 3 years, but this online MBA in India, if I talk about only our country, it is definitely going to expand and more people will have access. That's how I'll frame the answer.
Thank you. The point I'd like to add to that is that the Indian context always matters for solutions in India built by Indians. A majority of companies in India, the economy of India, the peculiarities of the economy, the behavior of people, these are all very specific. So if you go for an international MBA by its very nature, it is global. It wouldn't focus too much on the Indian context. And I think if you want to flourish in India, you need to get on to your first job and move on. An Indian context certainly matters. So to that extent, an online MBA done in India will certainly have an advantage over an international MBA. If you're aspiring for a global position or a top position in India globally, well, that's a different story. The next question is, one important aspect of MBA is internship provided, which immensely benefits learners. How is this achieved in the online program? I'll take this question because it's specifically there for the online program, and the internship exists for the campus program. So I think what we are doing is that work-based learning is extremely important for employability. We recognize this because employability is one of the first outcomes that we want. So what we have done is we have got this entrepreneurship practicum and research project, which is aimed at creating innovation useful to an organization. This comes up in semester 4. And since the person is not sitting inside the campus, they have all their time at their workplace or outside to build this up. So this is one component of workplace learning. The second component is the second year, all the courses, elective courses and capstone courses have course projects. Course projects are specifically put in place so that you can build up your, what we call your student portfolio. So you are expected to mirror small innovations for firms. So you look at a telecom company, find out what their pain points are, whether in marketing or HR, and see what you need to do in order to build an innovation for them. Look at the practices happening globally. So these course projects are going to play a big role in order to connect to workplace learning. And in the first year, the engaging exercises in the workplace narrations, we have an assessment format called the workplace narration, where you bring in your workplace and put it into the conceptual framework. And the discussions forums that we have every week, they reward workplace and marketplace inputs. So if you ask me, there is enough opportunity for the person to get back on work-based learning and showcase it well for whatever they want to do later. Next question. The question is, how are analytics and design thinking linked? Dr. Sanjay.
So I don't know. Okay, anyways. So design thinking and analytics, they are two different things, right? Design thinking is basically an approach towards solving a problem, and analytics is the statistics or the models that you use to analyze data. So they are two different things. So there's no linkage as such.
Okay. For the online MBA, maybe I'll give you a perspective. Because we started scratched up, we have used heavy design thinking. From curriculum to content to assessment to everything, we've used design thinking. And we will adapt it based on learning analytics. Now, when the student starts participating, we are going to get learning analytics. So the design thinking is going to be validated and certain things will be pursued more. depending on the persona of the learner, certain things will get emphasized more. So this is how I see that we will be able to use this linkage. The learner journey map that we talked about is in that direction. So it will be based on analytics, but the presumption is of the existing hypothesis of the design thinking that we have put in. Next is, somebody, I think this question is about, we want to know about the fees and the flexibility in the fees. So I'll take that question. I suppose it's specifically about the online MBA program. The program fee is 2 lakhs with an admission fee and semester or yearly payments. So the flexibility is with respect to the, either you can pay semester or you can pay yearly. If you really want to understand what it is, etc., you should visit the website online in IFHE, online.ifhindia.org. The next question is, an MBA program emphasizes building knowledge, skills, and the right attitude. How an online MBA program can address the issue of skill building, especially soft skills among students, and make them placement worthy? Dr. Sanjay.
So I think whether it is online or offline, the approach remains the same, right? So even in an online program, you can have presentations, you can have discussions. So we'll have cases, right? Cases will be discussed. So I don't think there is much difference from that aspect. So you are right. So it's about knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So even in an online context, that can be. So right now, when we are speaking, this is an online context, right? So we are talking about communication skills. People are listening. We are talking. So these are all communication skills, and those presentations and discussions and those participation in games, that will definitely build communication skills. So I don't think there's a difference as such between the physical MBA program and online MBA program as far as these 3 things are concerned.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think, I just want to add a point to that. All of you are exposed to WhatsApp groups. And the kind of arguments which are made in WhatsApp groups. So if the first skill that one needs to build is to build an argument. If you want to you move to a corporate, to a workplace, you want to present a proposal, you want to get sanctioned for it, you have to build an argument. And your argument must be based on facts and concepts. So this is something that all good MBAs will do. And this skill we repeatedly emphasize when we do our discussion forums. We give you marks only if you have both. You need to have the fact and you need to have the concept. Both have to be there. If you do it like one you do in a WhatsApp group, you won't get the marks for it. So I think this is something that needs to be built up. And when you have a very diverse student group, which is not very used to it, perhaps some of them are, I think, one will learn from the other, and very quickly, I think this skill will get built up. The rest of it, I think what Dr. Sanjay said is very relevant. The next question, MBA gives hands-on experience to students through face-to-face teaching mode. I think the question is that the online MBA does it. Dr. Sanjay.
I didn't get the question, sir. Face-to-face?
The MBA, the campus MBA gives hands-on experience to students through face-to-face teaching mode. That's the question. While I think the presumption is there are dots after that. So I think the question is, does the online MBA do so?
Hands-on experience, and by hands-on experience, like we said earlier. So if you are a working professional, you have your workplace where you can implement the projects, right? So that is hands-on. And if you're not a working executive, then maybe if we give you a project, let's say a survey, and we say, okay, find out the qualities or find out the characteristics of customers who visit malls, shopping malls. So you can go there, you can develop a questionnaire and go to different malls in your city, wherever you stay, and you collect that data and do the analysis. So that is hands-on experience, right? So it is available in the online MBA program as well.
Thanks. I think that's that's something that I wouldn't like to add anything to. I think it's very clear, crystal clear. It's absolutely possible in the online MBA. The next question is about how does one ensure pure learning in an online MBA online program? Dr. Sanjay.
How does one experience pure learning?
Peer
learning. Peer learning. Okay. So peer learning is very much possible in an online program because, as I said, we are experiencing that right now. You have those breakout rooms. I think I gave you that example. So when we are discussing a case, let's say there are 50 students in a class. So we have around 100 students in a class. So we divide them into groups of 10. So when they discuss that, peer learning is happening. And we also give projects which are group projects, right? Group projects are to be done in teams of 10 to 15, and the project is big enough where the contributions of all those people are required. And when they are presenting that, then each of the team members has to contribute. So it's not that you can freeload on that project and you can get marks. So you have to learn from your peers, and you have to understand the concept, you have to understand the project, and get the output. So I think peer-to-peer learning is very much possible, and in my experience that is happening in the online mode as well.
Thank you, Prof. I think two things which I'd like to add to the group projects is, one is discussion forums that we use heavily in the online program. The other is gamification, which add to peer learning. I just want to put a caveat here on peer learning. While it's a good Western concept used by players like Coursera, in India, universities have a pretty wary about evaluation by through peer learning. And unless the evaluation through peer learning also takes place, the benefits of peer learning don't come out fully. So we are right now in a stage where we are taking out some of the benefits, and let's hope we evolve more. The next question is about, there are two questions by the same person. One is how to bring in interaction in the online course. And the second is how to challenge students to use cognitive and psychomotor skills together in an online program. Same person, two questions.
I don't think I have an answer, but let me try. So we have been giving assignments to students which they discuss so that they are more interactive in the classroom. And in the cases also, suppose they have not read the case and come, so we give them some time at the beginning of the classroom to read that, maybe 1 or 2 pages initially, and then discuss those issues, and then move on to the next page and so on. But I think we are still learning, and there's a long way to go.
Yes, I think those challenges are there. A couple of points I'd like to add is, I think usage of technology, you find one faculty member using technology far more than the other. So this is one thing that you can step up interaction on. There are a lot of things to learn about usage of technology. The other is pedagogical methods. See, you have quite a bit of power in online. You can see the session itself. We've done a small pre-engagement exercise, posting a question, and we're spending so much of time answering your questions. So this is not as easily possible when you want to do face-to-face alone, unless you make it hybrid by combining it with technology. So pedagogical methods play a huge role. The third thing that I would suggest is, I think one should get into a bit of educational psychology, because educational psychology matters. The type of content and that you use in the classroom, cases people like a lot. If you use dry stuff, you ask them to read a chapter and then let's have a discussion on that, may not work that much. So type of content matters. The motivation that the facilitator provides matters. The learning management system matters. So all these things put up, you can step up the interaction if you put all of them together. So it's not just the faculty, but it's also the institution. On the cognitive and motor skills together, when you do projects, you have to do it together, and it goes beyond mere cognitive effort. So here too, if you're able to do things together, bring in the educational psychology, experiential learning, situated learning, student interest, motivation, teacher empathy, mentoring, I think all that put together, you can move the cheese. But all these will have to go together, because otherwise it will be a tough job. The next question is about what are the advantages of the online MBA from IFHE? What is unique about ICFAI's online MBA, USPs? I think I'll brief it up. I'll respond to it. First is it's learner-centric. It focuses on employability competencies. First is it's learner-centric. Second is focuses on employability competencies. 3 is the personalized approach based on learner needs and learning styles. So if I have to pick up 3, these are the 3. The next is about, the question is about the role of teachers in the era of technology. Dr. Sanjay.
So role of teachers in the era of technology, I think that is happening in the physical world as well. They are more like facilitators, because right now knowledge or information is available everywhere, right? So earlier, maybe 20 years back or 30 years back, if you wanted a book or if you wanted some information, you might not have that in the library. It was impossible to get. So it's basically about helping students connect different things. So making those connections between the concept and the context, that is what the role of teachers is. And that will continue to happen in the online MBA program as well. So teachers have to be good facilitators, and they have to inspire students, right? So they have to be inspirational in that matter. So that is the role of teachers, as per me.
Thank you. I think individual teachers, even if you don't have the opportunity, you should get into digitizing and digitalizing process, which are better off done by technology than by the teacher. Then the teacher can facilitate higher levels of learning outcomes. So if you spend your time on lower levels, then you can't get higher levels of outcomes. So I think technology can help you to step up. And this is precisely what teachers need to do. The classic AI discussion comes to this. It is creativity where the human will differ. It is humanization where the human will differ. And I think this is where teachers need to play a role. Next question is about strategies to attract students' attention towards online MBA courses and to make the sessions interesting. I think the presentation is both the presentations put together have already captured this question. The next is about what is in it that the industry will see value in online MBA. Dr. Sanjay.
So I think I remember that saying, hiring for attitude and training for skills, right? So that is the key phrase which we should understand. So if you are able to demonstrate that attitude when you interview with a corporate, when you interview with a company, that is what will make the difference, right? So it is up to, as we said, it's a learner-centric approach. And if you can get the right attitude and try to learn as many things as possible, understand the concepts, and able to demonstrate that when you are getting into the corporate world or when you are trying to shift organizations, that is what will that will be your USP.
Great. I think from a student perspective, that is what matters. From an institution perspective, what I would like to add is that anyway, the industry will assess the competency before hiring, whether we like it or not. So what do we do in terms of the learning outcomes, the learning environment, the learning process, the students and the faculty is going to matter. And this is where design matters, interventions matter. Employability is primary in this online MBA. And we are surely going to map into that. And I think certainly industry will be able to see that. The next question, currently how many universities in India are offering such online programs? In the recent approval in March 22, universities have got approved for online MBA. We are one of them. Obviously, these are ones who fitted the NAC criteria and the NIRF criteria. So they're all of a certain quality in terms of eligibility. Next question is about what is the difference between online and offline? Dr. Sanjay.
I think we have covered that enough, right? So differences in the offline MBA, you have to attend classes for the entire day. Each session is 1 hour, 15 minutes, and you have to sit through that. There is an attendance criteria. You have to have 75% attendance or more if you want to appear for the examinations. So that is a compulsion, and you are spending a lot of time in the campus, in the hostel, in the classroom. Whereas in offline MBA, you have the option of learning asynchronously, right? And all the classes are not live classes. So you'll have recordings, you'll have projects, you'll have small videos, you'll have games and all that. So that is the crucial difference. And you can spend time as per your schedule. If you are a working executives, you can decide when to listen to a lecture, recordings will be there. So that flexibility you have, which you don't have in an offline MBA.
Thank you. I think I'll take the regulatory perspective to add to it. And that is, campus and distance education programs are not online programs as per the regulatory definition, though they also use online methods as of today. An online program is 100% online, whether you want to get admitted or learn or exams or certification. There's absolutely no need for you to come to the campus or a university center even to take an exam. So it's 100% online. The regulatory norms obviously differ in each type. This is in addition to what Dr. Sanjay said. Some questions are related to information for the course. I think, it's best to refer to the website or contact the phone numbers which are listed there for specific questions. The information is already available publicly. And I think the last question, which is there out of that 39, there are some more and we are running short of time. Uh, how does online learning pedagogy offer course learning outcomes? How do you ensure that course learning outcomes are met through online learning pedagogy? How do we ensure constructing of knowledge in the absence of face-to-face interaction? Dr. Sanjay.
So this again from experience, the last 1 year, as everything is online right now. So the way we check whether those learning outcomes have been met is through assessments, right? That's what we do. And we have been finding, though we are facing problems in conducting those assessments, because again, online is a new ball game. We have to use multiple choice questions and getting descriptive questions and getting the answers, and then checking online becomes a problem. But uh, as far as learning outcomes are concerned, there has not been much of a difference from an offline mode. And again, I would repeat, we are still learning, but learning outcomes are getting better, or at least they're at the same stage as they were in the offline mode.
Just to add to that, and this is for the fully online, speaking for the fully online program, the first aspect of is design of learning outcomes at the program level, year level, course level, module level, learning object level. I think if this happens in the beginning, when the content is getting designed, when the assessment is getting designed, you're halfway through. And this has been part of our content and assessment development over the last 4 years. Everything we do even now goes through this. So if you're putting that cycle through, you get to your learning outcomes. You may have a campus program with learning outcomes listed there, but if the employability for half the management institutions in the country is being shown, no, why half? If you leave the top 50 out, the employability goes down to about 75%. And if you leave the top 100 out, overall, it goes down to 50%. So clearly, there is a disconnect between learning outcomes and what is getting done even in campus programs. So I think the issue is not about campus or face-to-face. The issue is about how the student goes about learning and how you facilitate that through your environment as well as through your learning process. The second question is, how do we ensure constructing of knowledge? Here, what I would like to say is that knowledge construction is a personalized learner-centric activity. I think we delved on this earlier. The primary issue here is motivation. So if you put your content and your engagement and the faculties aligned to get this done, I think, that knowledge construction will take place. Here, I'd like to share a quote by the person who brought in learning outcomes and used verbs, Benjamin Bloom. He said this in 1964. He said, formal environments are better at selecting talent than developing it. Formal environments are better at selecting talent than developing it. I passed out of IIM Cal in 1991. I remember 1989 when our director, Dr. Ramu Iyer, he took the first session and he said that, we have our name not because of the institution, but because of the students. I still remember this. So a lot of places where it's the students who give you the name. So what actually does the formal environment do? How much of value does it add to learning? I think unless you map in your outcomes and get it down to, something much more specific and you're able to measure it, I am not too sure whether face-to-face interaction gets better learning outcomes. I mean, this is my personal view. And I think it's supported by the statistics of how placements happen. Good institutions are able to do this, but there are many institutions which are still not able to do it. In my view, face-to-face has its limitations. And as I said, that as we go along, you will find good institutions moving to hybrid style because everyone has tasted how you can leverage technology. And I think they will move into a hybrid style with digital transformations. You'll see that happening pretty shortly. The good ones will go after it pretty. So this brings us to the end of the questions. There are 3 or 4 more. I think we have run out of time, and I think a lot of ground has been covered during these question answer sessions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of ground has been covered, Mr. Prasad and Professor Sanjay. Thank you very much for this marathon session. I think we ran the questions almost for an hour or so, much over and above the budgeted time. However, it was very, very interesting. I think it's a threadbare analysis and contrasting of online and offline and various takeaways in terms of how it is going to actually benefit them, what kind of outcomes are more valuable and meaningful for the learner as well as the institution. I think in the beginning, Professor Prasad has already explained the genesis of this program, how well founded it is on some of the brilliant principles, how it draws from some of the learning teaching principles that are quite coveted. And therefore, what you see as some of the tools and features and what is stated as benefits should actually be seen as outcomes for the learners and broadly the outcomes for the institution as a whole. I think that context has been well laid out, and it's a brilliant session. I must thank both Professor Sanjay as well as Professor R. Prasad. And importantly, the whole set of listeners who have been glued to the screen for the entire 1.5 hours that we have ran this for, I must thank them. And the premeditated questions which you have shared at the time of filling up the registration form has helped us. And I'm sure if a recorded version is seen, it is going to give us a lot of takeaways. One last line from my side. I'm just kidding. Professors have answered lots of questions. If some of you decide to join, they will begin their questions. I'm just kidding. I welcome you for a wonderful learning sessions at ICFAI. ICFAI Online welcomes you for this online MBA program. I want to thank each one of you for setting this up, each one of you for participating actively, and the value added by two leading professors from ICFAI headquarters. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you for this session.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Sudhakar.
sir. Thank you, Prasad, sir.
Thanks to
Thank you,
all
Sudhakar,
members.
sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay.
Thank you to all the participants. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for the excellent session. Thank you.